speaker. He had written down his, so sorry, he had written down his intro there, but I've left it on the table. I'm too professional to go and fetch it. I'm unprofessional enough to tell you that I've forgotten it. But Ian Farrar, he's a local lad. Ian is a speaker, a trainer. He's the founder of one of the best leading podcasts, business podcasts out there. And Ian has got so much to share with you. I'm looking forward to hearing his talk, and it's always nice to have somebody local on the stage, and you can probably understand him better than you can understand me, which is another good thing. So please welcome Ian Farrar.
Good picture, eh? So the last time I stepped through, after hearing that song, wasn't on a stage, it was stepping through these ropes onto a charity boxing fight. And that was part of my one-on-one volunteering session. What I want to do, give myself a challenge. I want to volunteer my time 101 times for charity and fantastic causes. And this is one of them. We raised £8,000 for the Charlie and Carter Foundation, of which I'm a trustee of. Now the reason I wanted to do this was to make an impact, to change. You only get one shot on this planet, and I wanted to know what could I do. So we've done things like pick up litter. I've changed seats at the Stadium of Light, not St James's Park. Run half marathons, walked on hot coals. We've even bought a dairy cow for a lady in Kenya called Rose, who milks the cow. And that's part of her business venture. Just to see what we could do, just to meet people, see what serendipity happens, and I've had fun on the way. Because I don't like regret. I didn't want to get in my autumn years and think, shoulda, woulda, coulda have done more. So the 101, I'm going to document, I'm going to write a book about it, so each one I do, I record it like a blog style, like a coffee table style book. And what I think of is, if somebody buys that book, it might impact them to then volunteer, because volunteering, in my opinion, is the backbone of this country. So that 101 might turn into 1,001 after people read the book, or maybe 1,000,000 or one. I don't know. So as I say, regret something I don't handle very well, and I think Cole touched upon that earlier on in his talk. And I know why, because I don't like looking back over. I've got issues with it. I don't like looking at photographs. I don't like watching videos. Everything's that way for me. And I'll tell you why. Does anyone walk in the Lake District here? Yeah? Then you would have known rock cairns. Every time I see a rock cairn, I leave 3 stones for my 3 children. Luke, Francis and Jessica. And Buddhists say that rock cairns are a way of worship, trying to balance positivity. And I love it. Now my second child, Francis, when we went to see her second pregnancy scan, we asked what the gender would be, and it was a girl, which was great because we already had Luke, which was a boy, so that was my family complete, that was the perfect family. Now, whilst the sonographer was doing that scan, I noticed a change in her face. My wife didn't, she just faced me away. But I looked at the lady and she said, I'm just going to go get a second opinion on something. And she pulled somebody in, and they had a little bit of a talk amongst themselves. They weren't too happy with the measurement, so they said, look, we'll send you to the RVI, nothing to worry about. You head up there and get a 4D scan, which was exciting. 4D scan, it's expensive stuff. So we went up to the RVI, and we saw Frances on the monitor. You could see her face, her features really clearly. But we could also see only one side of her heart working. So what I decided was, we'd go away for a couple of weeks, we'd come back and see what was happening. That was 2 long weeks. We went back to the RVI again, and the consultant said, your heart's like a flower, and only one side had opened, the other one had stayed closed. So they said, look, we're going to keep monitoring things, come back in a week. Well, as the consultant left the room, I followed him out while my wife was wiping down the ultrasound gel. And I tapped him on the shoulder and he spun round and I said, look, give it to us straight. Because these guys sit on the fence. They don't like to tell you, they don't want to make any decisions, maybe in case of comebacks. And I said, look, tell us straight. And he said, look, I really respect your question. And I'll forget the look he gave me. He just stopped and said, Ian, doesn't look good. Shortly after that, we lost Francis. And that was 6 months through the pregnancy, which was tough because we had to go and give birth. So my wife had to give birth to Francis, who'd passed. And her little hands in mine was something I won't forget. And also carrying that little white coffin that Sarah mentioned was also tough. Obviously, you'd see people after that as well on the street, and they'd ask how the baby was, because they didn't know the news, and every time I met a stranger, I'd have to tell them the same old story, which was tough. But not as tough as telling Luke, 5-year-old Luke, that his sister wasn't coming home. That was super tough. Or going back to the house with the freshly picked walls and the little dresses hanging up and the empty cot. That was really tough. But it couldn't define me. I couldn't let it define me because a year later, Jessica came along. And I can imagine the relationship I've got with Jessica now, Daddy's girl. She's my resident director. And it can't define me because if it does, I'll spoil the relationship I've got with those two. Now what they say is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I thought that was rubbish actually. I was really angry, as you can imagine. But I actually do agree with that. But that didn't teach me that. Something else did. It was a corporate challenge that I went through. Because before I cut off my corporate chains, I was a commercial director of a software company globally. Apologies for the bad haircuts. So I travelled to the Middle East, Malaysia, China, India, working super hard trying to grow a company whilst this was going on. And it was tough. I had very little support in a team of 30 because my MD was never in the business. He probably did about half a day a week. Sometimes I didn't sing for weeks. And I was around the world pushing hard. So I said to this guy, look, why didn't I buy your shares off you? You can go off and do what you do. He was never in the business. He was always lack of enthusiasm or talking about various ailments. And I knew about ailments because I pushed hard. I'd actually burnt out. Not once or twice, but 3 times over that 10 years I burnt out. I was constant symptoms of anxiety, nausea, blurred vision, bloating. I had MRI scans, ultrasound scans, cameras down the throat, chest x-rays, and I was fine. You know what I'm going to say. I was just stressed. I was taking too much on. I was popping beta blockers for fun. Half a tablet for an internal meeting, a full tablet for an external, whilst the gaffer's in the house letting me do all the work. And one day he rang me, it was a Sunday, and he said, look, Ian, why don't you come in the office? Which was unusual, not because it was a Sunday, just the fact he was in the office. And when I got there, his wife was packing up bags. And it was a tough journey, that 15 minutes up the motorway, because I thought he was going to tell me that he was dying. He had cancer. He wasn't going to be around long enough. And he sat me down and he gave me the bombshell. He'd sold the company. So the company I'd worked hard for, my company, that I was going to buy, and that was going to be my legacy for my boy, and I was going to work hard at, and I had been working very hard at. He'd sold it. He had an offer he couldn't refuse. He'd asked me to become a chartered engineer before he sold it, and he said, if you're going to be MD, I want you to go through Institute of Directors, Certificate of Company Direction. If they're going to be in your hands, you need to prove to them you can do this. And I've been doing this for years, and they agreed. And he sold the company. So I was super bitter. And I quit. I came home and I said to my wife, I'm done. And she said, yeah, it's lovely weather, better get yourself in the garden, get yourself a beer. I said, no, darling, I'm done. I quit. It took me 7 months to get my mojo back after that. I was super bitter. angry. And it's interesting because that 7 months I was just mowing lawns, I was in the loft, I was doing a bit of gardening, I was doing the school runs. I just couldn't get my mind back in the game until there came a moment when I said, do you know what it is? My mind's making actions for me. If I can control my mind, if I just take control, I've got this. And I don't believe there's a time that you can just decide to heal yourself. You know, if you broke a leg, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get better. And your mind and your heart and your soul will heal in its own time. But mine did, and I came back and I thought, right, what do I need to do here? I need to do something for me. I don't want to be answering to anybody. 100% of my actions and my life had to be down to me. So I decided to start a company to help others grow, to help other businesses grow through sales and marketing. And I also wanted to work with the best people possible from the client point of view. So if I don't get on with clients now, I just fire them. It's very liberating. It's not a cultural fit. Move along. Nothing to say here. Because to me, it's my power. I can do this. I also thought, I wonder if I could document my journey with a podcast. Because there are lots of people going to the entrepreneurship game around my age. What if I could share my journey with them and help them on the way? So I did just that. I documented it all. This is Luke. That's my boy. And you like a good selfie, don't you? So Luke is actually, I'm a Star Wars fan. Just don't tell his mother. Once we signed the form, I said, oh, by the way, you're not Luke Skywalker. Luke's 15, and we live in South Shields, just up the road down the coast. And Luke works in a barber shop on the weekend. Now, Luke loves to save his money and buy clothes. Now, you might have recognised these Nike 95s on there for your parents. £130 for those bad boys. There she is. There's my girl. Now, Jessica is a dancer. Now, if there is any parents, you'll know they love the makeup. Jessica has enough makeup to decorate a big top full of clowns, but she wants more. It's never enough. Jess wants a makeup palette from a guy called James Charles. He's a 19-year-old New Yorker. James is a YouTuber. He does makeup tutorials. YouTube is a thing now. Some of your children might want to become YouTubers. So back to Nike. Now, Nike was founded 55 years ago in Oregon. Now, I'd like to say that everybody in this room owns something or has worn something Nike. Yeah? Good. I'm a huge Nike fan. I nearly put some on today, but I was like, Suki wants to be smartish. And I love their strapline. Just do it. Whatever your age, your gender, your physical ability, just do it. 30 years old, that strapline. We all know that, yeah? It's synonymous with Nike. I love that. But back to James. James doesn't have 55 years of pedigree, brand loyalty and association. James is 19. Nike have 1 million YouTube subscribers to their channel. James has 16 million. And he's 19. Now, my friends, how is that possible? Well, it's through content. Killer content. Relatable content. Sharing his journey. Making an impact. Impact on Jessica, who's only 10. I love that. Now, if I had to ask you guys, actually, who's in marketing? I will ask you guys, who's in marketing here? My friend Paul there, 2, 3, 7. Well done, sir. I should expect to see a sea of hands. Okay? You guys are all in marketing. Okay? If you had to coerce your child into the car seat this morning to get your butt out here, or if you tried to blag a VIP ticket off Suki, or you took a selfie outside, you're marketing. If you want someone to take action, you are marketing. We're all marketers here. We've all all got an impact to make. Now, God forbid if I did walk up that road and enter the turnstiles of St James's Park, and I asked those 50,000 people in there at half time to tell me their value proposition, their product or service. And after 3 hours, they shouted out, 1, 2, and then almighty blast of buy my stuff, check me out, I'm amazing. If you're on LinkedIn, you know how that works. You get a connection request, 2 minutes later, hey Susie, do you want some new customers? Do you want to buy my stuff? Do you want some new connections? Do you want some new leads? Everyone's trying to tell you what to do. Social media is like that at the moment. Very loud, it's very noisy. How do we stand out in the crowd then? How do we be like James? How can we tell our story differently? We're in the age now of authenticity, relatability, transparency. I think we get the social media tricks and tips that people start to push us through the sales funnels now. We're a bit wise now, aren't we? So let's share our journeys. Let's make an impact. Now, I'm a bit of a fan of goals then. So the 101 thing is a goal. I've actually hit this goal, which was reading the top 100 books as recognised by the BBC. What an absolute crazy idea, Ian. Awful. No, it wasn't actually. Because I had great fun with Tolkien and Steinbeck and Orwell. But man, Dostoevsky's intense. And those classics, wow, not for me. But I wanted to hit that 100. I wanted to be more worldly. I wasn't the most academic in school. So when I was in boardrooms, I wanted to be able to talk about Of Mice and Men, Emily Bronte. So I pushed on through, but I couldn't handle the classics, so I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll download them as MP3 files. Have you seen Moby Dick? I mean, come on. So I got through them, a little bit of Gene. But I pushed through and I got there. So I was commuting with what were very thin in my ears, walking the streets of Beijing with Emily Bronte. And I enjoyed it, I got through that. But then I found internet radio. The world was at my fingertips. Can you remember when you got AOL in your life? Yeah? It was like electricity had just been put in your house. The MSN chat rooms were on fire, weren't they? Wow. Send me a pic. Internet radio was awesome. A friend and an amazing man called Art Bell was my hero, who had a show called Coast to Coast, all about aliens and the paranormal and conspiracy theories. That's what I was into. Loved all that carry on. Right across the world, I could listen to all these crazy radio stations. And then I also found a little icon on my company iPhone called podcasts. And I did a search on aliens and I found stuff. And I started to listen. I even found one on Sunderland Football Club. I just didn't subscribe. And then I thought, what about business? I'd started this company, I wanted to be a better entrepreneur, what could I learn? So I searched for some business podcasts and I found some, but they were the same old stuff every week. Tell me your top 5 business books. Can you tell me when you faced a challenge? Really? I wanted to hear the real stuff. So my book consumption fell off a cliff. I don't read books anymore. People send me books all the time to come on a podcast. I just wrote a book, can I send you it? Yeah, go on. Just put that on the shelf. Really good. Fully enjoyed that book. But I believe we all learn from stories. Okay? Even back in the day when we were in that cave eating saber-toothed tiger around the fire, we shared stories, that's how we learn. So what I decided was to start my own podcast and share some of those stories rather than the top 10 business books or your boring challenge that you just made up to sound good. So I did a bit of research. My podcast called Industry Angel, you guys might recognize that up there. These are my notes from 5 years ago. I decided the industry angel was going to be overlooking the city and sharing business stories. I did a lot of homework about the software and the hardware and what I could do. I did this in the winter of 2014 with a view of just getting stuff done. I wanted to do more. The gloves were off now. I didn't answer to anybody. I could do absolutely anything I want to do, and I still can. So I decided to start a podcast. And quite quickly it was going well. It was number 1 in iTunes in the business and technology charts. And I was being listened to by thousands in over 100 countries. It was quite mad. You don't know who's at the end of a podcast. You don't know who's reading your book. It's quite spooky. When you go into a network event, listen to someone say, "Oh, hi, I was listening to you last week." You're like, "Really?" So stories. Across the years when I've been working overseas, I've met some fantastic people. And I wanted to share their stories with the world. I wanted this podcast to be a little bit different. And this is my friend James. James wrote the ultimate triathlon because he scaled Everest. He cycled around the world and he rode single-handedly across the Atlantic, as you do. He's a real man, I'm not. Now what's that got to do with business? Well, you don't just climb up the world's tallest mountain. It takes 2 months. You trek to base camp. You go from base camp to camp 1, you acclimatise. You go to camp 2, you come back down to base camp again. You go back to camp 1, you go back to camp 2. You spend a bit of time doing this. You're waiting for your weather window to open, and then you go for it. It's a project, isn't it? It's a project with milestones. Similarly, when James wrote the Atlantic, he had set working hours. He'd wake up in the morning, 9 o'clock. He'd pull on the oars. He'd have a break at 10:30. He'd have his lunch. He'd have another break. He'd pull on the oars. He'd go to sleep. If you do that every day, you're going to get to the other side. And when you're halfway through, you're on the home straight. Just keep pulling on them oars. What's that got to do with life? Wow. Mental strength, resilience, pushing on every day, no matter what, to get to the other side. Something we all have to do. Many times, I imagine, in your lives. So, the podcast gets a bit addictive looking at these stats of who's looking at your podcast, who's reading it, who's listening in various outposts of the world. You can't really see that very well, but it's covered in listeners. And my network grew quite quickly with people I didn't even know, which scares my mother. You don't even know this guy. You do. Let's find a friend. Now, a friend of mine, Alexander, who I'd never met, I'd been on his show a few times. We've Skyped quite regularly. Alexander wanted to write a book about podcasting through his banner, The Podcaster's Coach. And Alexander said, "Would you mind writing a chapter for me?" And I said, "Yes, I will. But I'm not going to write a normal chapter about how great podcasting is around the world." And I called it Global Platform, Local Focus. Because I believe your network is so strong, especially in this region, that we can't ignore it. We can't keep looking past your network to see what's over there in Botswana. It's what's happening here in Newcastle for me. And I've got lots of friends in this room who've helped me. So what we decided to do was take the podcast on the road. We did live venues. This is us having fun. Interviewing people live in a room. The audio is recorded for the podcast that goes up the next week, but we live stream it through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We have so much fun with this. These things build, just like this conference will be bigger next year, just like Cool's conference will be bigger next year. Keep doing it, just get it done. Just do it. I had no one that couldn't tell me I couldn't do this. I had good friends that said, "Let's do it." But the attitude and the mindset is just to get stuff done. Now, what did I do since then? Some pretty mad stuff. I'm talking here in front of you guys now. You absolute rock stars, and I know you are because I've checked some of you out on Twitter. You've got some great stuff going on. Share it. These are some of the things I've done. Cool mentioned there was 3 policemen in the house. There's 4. Because I was a supporting artist on Vera last month. I wasn't a gold commander though. Because I'm going to be interviewing Anne Cleves, who's the writer of the Vera books. We've got a live event in Newcastle in December. But I've been in Alexander's book, I've been featured in magazines, I've been on various shows, I represented the country in International Podcast Day last year. I've been awarded awards. I'm an Amazon influencer apparently, whatever that is. And I've been a policeman. Just from getting stuff done, just from saying in that winter, do you know what it is? I'm just going to start something and see what I didn't even know this stuff would happen. And I don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after. I'm just continuing to do stuff and just saying yes. One shot on the planet, no one's going to tell me what to do anymore, I'm just going to go for it. And these are some of my friends who helped me with the show. And we do go all in 10 out of 10. Because if you're going 5 out of 10, you're just going to copy something that's already been done to try and replicate it, and it's not going to work. You've probably heard the term, think outside the box. Oh my God, what an awful term. But build your own box. Build your own box over there. We don't have to follow the rules. You can do whatever you want. You know, Picasso painted 100 of the world's best paintings, but he painted 10,000. I probably wouldn't listen to episode 1 of my podcast, but if it would be 150th, there had to be a 1. It had to start somewhere. Just like James, who's 19, he had to start somewhere. 16 million people later, he's making a difference. So my friends, no one's coming to save you. It's on you. Thank you very much.